Hello and welcome to today's lesson where we're looking at the change curve and how to accelerate change. So what is the change curve? Well, the change curve exists to help us understand how people emotionally experience a major disruptive change. Now, without change, an organization will cease to exist as its products and services become obsolete. Consumer tastes move on, and even political regimes change as popular opinion and views change over time. So therefore, every organization must change if it is to continue to grow and if it is to continue to be successful. Now, from a people perspective, implementing change can be very challenging. Why? Well, because people, they get used to their routine. They're used to the status quo, and impending major change can feel very threatening. People may fear that their previous work is being undermined or devalued, or, in the worst case, they may fear that they're going to lose their job. Now, the original grief curve describes how people handle grief when confronted with terminal illness. As they were originally described, the 5 stages of grief are denial, and that's associated with phrases such as, I feel fine, this can't be happening to me, where people are just denying this is happening at all. Then they move to the anger phase. Why me? It's just not fair. Who has done this to me? Next, they move to the bargaining phase, where they're trying to effectively negotiate their fate. Just let me live long enough to see my children graduate. Then comes depression. I'm going to die, so what is the point in anything anyway? And finally, acceptance. I can't fight it, so I may as well just get on with life and prepare for it. Now, the diagram on this slide shows the 5 stages of grief adapted to show how people emotionally experience change in a professional environment. Now, as we move across the diagram from left to right, gradually we come to accept the change. And the stages we move through are shock, the initial shock upon hearing the announcement; denial, and that's the belief that the change isn't relevant to them or their work; frustration, they're going to block this change, they're not going to allow this to happen; depression, where everything they're currently doing seems pointless and their confidence is really low; experimentation, and this is where people start to question if this might just work for them. They begin to try things out and consider the different scenarios going forward. Then we come to the decision stage. Finally they're coming to terms with what's happening and starting to feel more positive about the future. They're making decisions about what works and what doesn't work. And the final stage is integration. So what once was new is now just starting to be the way things are done. Now, as we follow the curve from left to right, we can see that people's initial reaction to an upcoming major change is to feel shocked. But ultimately, they just carry on as though the change isn't going to happen and isn't going to affect them. Then they start to feel angry and annoyed, and they look to fight the change. And they look for someone to blame for the misfortune that's being placed at their door. Now, at this point, their work will start to suffer, as they can't see the point in continuing to work hard if everything's going to change soon anyway. Now, as you can probably imagine, this is a really unpleasant stage for people who are being affected by the change. But as time moves on, productivity drops even further as anger gives way to depression. But it's always darkest before the dawn, and this phase is also associated with people beginning to accept that the change is actually going to happen. Basically, people finally start to let go of what was, and they start to accept what is. And in the final phases of the change curve, people start to embrace the change. This happens slowly at first, with people starting to explore ideas of how things might look and work after the change. And finally, each individual makes a decision to fully embrace the change, reorganize their ways of working, and integrate with the new change. And it's only at this point that the organization can start to experience the benefits of the change. So how do you use this change curve? Well, as a manager, understanding the change curve can put us at an advantage when managing change, because by understanding the change curve, we can aim to accelerate the speed at which people move along the curve from left to right, and we can also try and reduce the depth of depression people experience during the change. But how do you do this? How do you achieve an accelerated change and a smoother change? Well, the answer is through communication. Now, this diagram shows two things. On the top, you can see the state of mind people are in as they go through the change. And along the bottom, you can see how you should change your communication style based on people's state of mind. So during the initial phases of the change curve, you should focus on clear and timely communication to all of those affected. Any mismanagement of communication now is going to require extra work later to put right. So why not get it right first time? You should aim to ensure your communication is really clear, really complete, really honest, and that you include everyone who's effective, and you should probably communicate more than you think you need to. Now, as we transition along the change curve and some people begin to feel angry about the change, make sure that you take the lead and actively let people know that your door is always open and that you will listen sympathetically to their issues and reassure them as much as possible. Now, in offering this emotional support, during this phase of the curve, your aim really is to minimize the amount of time and the depth of the depression at the bottom of the curve. You're trying to make the change be implemented as smoothly as possible. Finally, as we transition towards generating ideas and the realization that this might just work as a solution for them, your focus should be on supporting and guiding them as they explore, the different possibilities and make decisions on how the change will work for them. So effectively, you're going to switch from offering them emotional support towards pointing out opportunities and the facilitation of meetings to work out how things will look and work after the change. Now, by managing the change carefully through how you communicate, you can achieve, a far better outcome than if you just allowed the change to impact your team in an unmanaged way. So, in summary, the change curve provides a great rule of thumb to understand how people experience major change emotionally. Now, the model was first developed to understand people coming to terms with terminal illness, but in a business context, it can be used to help us understand how people are feeling during a major change. We can use this knowledge to reduce the emotional strain on our team, as well as to accelerate the change.